Hello everyone, it's Jin'taan here, and another 2 weeks have passed, and that means we get another patch. Although this time we're actually going to be covering two patches rather than one, because something very, very exciting happened just the other day with the launch of the Christmas event for this year. And I am joined, as always, by my wonderful co-host and small gang specialist, Suitonia.
Hello, good to be here again.
So I bet you are absolutely rock hard having read the patch notes for at least the December 12th change.
Oh yeah, this is probably the best Christmas present CCP has ever given us.
Mm-hmm. And I'm guessing that doesn't have to do with things like addressing, hypernet issues in Russian and the fact that all the Rex are snowflakes. Although, how do you feel about actually killing people and then becoming special snowflakes? Because I was pretty happy about that. I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Uh, But no, the thing that we are going to be focusing on, obviously, in this patch out of everything is, I guess to some extent, we should probably talk about the skill points and random other rewards that come with it, because obviously that's a huge advantage to people like me who are skill farmers, and that's kind of bad for the game, and I don't like it when CCP does that, but hey, it's kind of necessary if you're going to give presents to everyone. I just wish that it could be limited to, like, players.
Yeah, if there was some kind of activity requirement, like something that really annoys me about the events is CCP has the activity tracker. They've had it in the game for a year and a half now, and I actually think it's pretty decent, but it doesn't tie into anything. And so we know that CCP tracks everything, right? Like blueprint production, jumps, like all measures of activity other than NPC kills, and we could just have earn 100 activity points to get the reward, and it could be you could do anything, like you could jump, you could produce stuff, you could do exploration, just anything, because that's generally the biggest complaint with like the killing NPC stuff, right? Is that some people don't kill NPCs, they have like production alts or alts that are in wormholes, etc. So I really wish they would do something like that with the activity tracker and tie that into events instead of just having kill one NPC or
Yeah, I'm not sure how feasible it is at the end of the day. It's a matter of like how deep can they reasonably go. And to some extent, some people are always going to take advantage of it. It's just about kind of raising their effort barrier to the point where you can't do it on 50 to 100 accounts.
yeah, and I'm sure you would still like figure out something out, right? Like, oh, you just need to build, 10 ventures or something to hit it. So you just log in and build 10 ventures or whatever.
I don't know, honestly, at that point, as long as I'm like is positive, I'm still probably just going to farm and just not bother with it. Like I haven't bothered with the one NPC thing, for example. Not worth it.
Yeah, anyway, moving on, I guess we should talk a little bit about the special gift this year, which is the unique abyssal filaments. So there's 9 types of them altogether. And what they do is they actually teleport a random amount of people in your fleet between 5 to 25, depending on the filament, to a random null-sec system.
Sorry, the actual number of people aren't random. It's tied to the tier of the filament, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. So there's 9 filaments altogether. The first one teleports 5 people. The second one teleports 10. Third teleports 15, and the fourth teleports 20. And that's to a random system. And then we have another set basically of 5 to 9. Uh, the fifth to ninth one, and that's 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 people. Going up from 5 to 9. But that these specific ones have a much higher chance of going to active null-sec systems.
Really know what that means right now. We haven't really sat down and crunched all the data on it. I think we can imagine what it's going to end up looking like once people start really figuring out how to use these things.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty brutal. There are a few restrictions in place. A lot of them are sensible. So they all have the same restrictions as normal abyssal filaments. So you can't use them while tethered, etc. You can't use them in range of a mobile depot. You also have to be the fleet commander to be able to use one of these filaments. So you can't really use them to grief people. So, you could join, for example, like a fleet, like a 200-man fleet as a logi, and then you could just activate the 25-man one and just teleport their entire Logi wing out when you're on their anchor, which would be, pretty amusing. But luckily, CCP's kind of thought of that. You also have to have your safety set to red to activate them too, so you can't really use them to grief in high sec too effectively. You can't just make an incursion fleet and then get 10 of your friends in it, then recruit another 10 people into it, then teleport the 10 people out and kill them.
And it's worth noting that because they have the same restrictions as abyssal filaments, that means that they can pretty much only use cruisers, right? Or are you able to use frigates as well?
You can actually use any non-capital ship in the game.
Interesting.
So you can use battleships too, which is also pretty fun too, because like one of the things that really sucks about battleship rooms is like how long it takes to get them out, and taking them through wormholes is really unreliable. But you could just get 5 of your friends together in megathons or whatever and just teleport out, which is pretty cool.
It's gonna be a question of how effective that is at like actually getting stuff done. But I guess this is also coincidental to the changes to what was it, like the Ansablex jump gates getting moved 500 kilometers away. That came into full effect with this last patch, right? We're going to talk about later.
Yeah.
So now you actually have like these things to poke as well to try and get content. In theory, I really want to just like get a gang of like, I don't know, blaster thoraxes or something, 20 of them or whatever, jump them into a system and just start attacking someone's jump bridge. I don't care who it is that I land on, I just want to attack it and just see what they do.
Yeah.
Really annoying.
Yeah, that would be super cool. Just one more restriction that I didn't mention is that you can't use them while you have the red PvP timer. So, and you get one when you use it, so you can't use it. You can't use like tons of them back to back to back to back to teleport to where you want to go. Essentially, there's a 15-minute cooldown on it, and you can't use them to escape too well because if you have a PvP timer, then you can't teleport out with them. But you could, in theory, for example, if you're getting camped in by a group, this happens quite frequently, is you get camped in by a bunch of lazy people with supers, but they don't bother probing you at all. They just camp the gate you're on. You could just like wait out the 15-minute time and teleport out, which would be pretty cool.
No jump fatigue as well. So if you have like a big stack of them in your FC ship, you can jump to one system, hit some stuff, and then jump away to another system, hit some more stuff over there, and just set nullsec on fire if you're really dedicated.
Yeah, it would also be. I think it'd be pretty interesting to see like how people could use these with Black Ops, because you could, in theory, use the 25-man one, right? Like take out a bridging blobs and make maybe 3 hunters, and then a fuel truck, and then you've got like 20 bombers or whatever else you're using for drops. And you can just instantly get in decent range of an area to drop on people.
Where that area is going to be, so it's going to be hard to like seed scouts, but if you can bring the scouts with you, then
yeah, with the 25-man you at least have a few slots so you can have for dedicated hunters, a few for scouts, etc., right? So
fun. Like it seems like there's a lot of opportunities here. I think it's also cool that they've put an end date to it as well, which encourages people to use them and not like try and save them up, so they can see like the full effect of what I guess the best possible mobility in EVE Online could look like. Because this is pretty close to what the upper end of strategic mobility in EVE could look like, I think.
Yeah, and it'd be, if it works out pretty well, if it's not like game-breakingly broken, CCP could maybe even release like a new form that's permanent in the game with maybe a few more reasonable drawbacks and costs to them. But so looking forward to see how these pan out. If a lot of people have a lot of fun with them and they don't completely break the game, then maybe CCP could release a more permanent fixture.
It'd be great for streaming too, because you can they're just content buttons, so you just grab a ship, press your content button, run it into a brick wall, die, go back to where you are, grab another ship, content button, you're somewhere completely different, they don't know you're coming, but you're going to try and kill stuff.
Yeah, it's cool as the sort of instant action button, right? Like, and you don't need to do things like, probe beforehand, or talk to people and get things set up beforehand like you do. Like, imagine someone like Beyond B, right, has to generally like pre-arrange fights, or already have like scouts and people who help him get content, like tacklers. Already like talking to him and like providing him with details of where people are going to be, etc. Whereas with this, it's kind of, you don't have to do any of the stuff that you have to do before a roam. You could just say, okay, everyone, join me in 15 minutes. We're teleporting out.
That's pretty much the major thing that came in that pass, but I thought it was super important to just get right to it, because it's going to be super interesting to just see how it happens and how it plays out. Both you obviously share our opinion on, but I really want to see how we can use this on like a fleet level to just make chaos happen. Let's move on to the main patch, which is the quote-unquote free market release, and that came out the day before that, on the 11th. A whole bunch of things, but the biggest of them, obviously, and the first in the list, is the Hypernet Relay, which has been added to the game. And for those of you who aren't familiar, I mean, I summarized it very, very briefly in a video of my own, and the TLDR of that was it's Summer Blink, but CCP ran. And it's pretty much like there is definitely a separation there. It's different enough that it has its own kind of feel to it. In terms of, it's not actually items being put up there by CCP, it's other players putting the items up there. It's more of a peer-to-peer system. And also you could get a lot more unique items through it. There's the stuff like corpses. I know you had some fun flipping a Jin'taan corpse the other day. But yeah, that's pretty much all it is. It's a raffle system. Not much more to it.
Yeah, I don't think we have too much to say on it, really, that hasn't already been said. I have to say that the marketing around it from CCP was really slimy, though. The new trading system, etc.
Just felt like super pretentious to me. It didn't feel like actively disingenuous. It just was like, really? You're really gonna pump yourselves up over this? Alright. Cool.
And the other major change that was released that we talked about a little bit just now, right, is the kicking over sandcastles update, which released a bunch of changes to structures, and mostly timers, and how they work, as well as enforcing the answer blacks rule that we talked about 4 weeks ago. So now any answer black structures that weren't anchored further than 500 kilometers from a citadel have now been turned offline.
We're starting to see the very first little steps towards POSes and POS code getting deleted, because a ton of obsolete style-based blueprints have been deleted, converted into other types. And that is probably a sign of good things to come, I think.
Yeah, that's good. Definitely want to see POSs removed from the game.
It, like, for all the stick people will give citadels, and I think we can all agree that I don't think we can all agree on it, but it's definitely something that I feel is that POSes had a better balance of aggressor and defender agency in terms of how fights took place. But citadels did clean up a lot of really crap code that just stopped CCP from being able to iterate on the game. And let's not forget the amount of whining threads that there were about POSes and how much of a problem they were and how hard they were to use and how super unintuitive all the UI was. And now we've got to the position where pretty much anyone can drop a citadel, and it's not that difficult. They understand intuitively how to use a lot of the mechanics. There's not too much that's really getting in their way there. So for all the downsides that they've had mechanically, it's helped make the game a lot more accessible. And I think people forget that sometimes when they just long for a return of the Day of the Pauses is, just how unintuitive and hard pauses were for a lot of people.
Oh yeah, I used the POS when me and TikTok attacked Queries, and it took us 4 hours to online a POS because you can only anchor like one gun at a time, one module at a time, and you have to wait for like 2 minutes for each one. So if you wanted to just put like 30 and then also online it after you anchored it. So just to like put 30 modules, like 30 modules on a POS, it would literally you'd literally have to have someone there uh the whole time for 2 hours on top of, like onlining the POS, having people actually there to be able to defend it if they, attack it when you first anchor it too, because then it can die without strong until it, regenerates above 51% shields.
Fun. Oh, do you remember repping pauses back up too? That was really engaging
Oh
and
yeah.
fun gameplay. Even though at the end of the day, like, that did have its advantages because it forced the defenders to always put people on the field, even if even if they weren't going to fight, and that gave you a potential to catch something. Blue balling wasn't quite as blue back in those days. It was still awful when you knew the attackers weren't going to contest something, but because of safety and because you didn't want it to be, attacked in their time zone and easy, you had to sit there and you had to rep it from, what did it tick back up to? Like 25% normally? 0. I actually don't remember.
I think when it goes into reinforced at 25% if you have strong in it,
Yeah,
and then I
that's
think
right.
it comes back out at 25%. But
Back up to 51, and then you could
yeah,
put strong back in, and you were just like, kill me.
yeah, it also offlines like everything that has CPU too when it goes into reinforced, and then you can't turn it back online either until it goes up to 51%. So things like shield hardeners and I think the corp hangers and labs and things like that. So it was also a pain in the ass too, because even if you repaired it, you then have to have another person just sitting there in the POS for over 1 hour, just onlining your shit again.
Ugh. Welcome to like a throwback episode where we just bitch about pauses for 5 minutes.
Yeah, so let's go back a bit more on topic and talk about the actual changes. So previously, there's 3 timers right on structures. There used to be the initial reinforcement that could take place at any time and any day. And then there's the second timer, which comes out, I think, 24 hours, 24 to 48 hours approximately at the defender's time zone. And then after that, it would come out at the defender's time and day for the structure. But now CCP has changed that and they've actually gotten rid of the specific day. And now it will just come out, I think, it's for low and null anyway. It's 2.5 days after the armor timer now.
I've seen a lot of complaints about it on Reddit and things like that, saying that it doesn't fix a lot of the problems. And if I'm going to be honest, I haven't really sat down and done all the maths and figured out how it is. I'm going to have to sit down and siege some structures and feel out how it plays to really know how it's going to affect combat and how it changes stuff. I think one of the problems is 2.5 days is still a long time, and it's hard to set up those weekend fights still. But the fact that it's even possible is probably a huge improvement to a lot of cases.
Yeah, I've seen a few complaints that it's still pretty bad for the attackers because you still need to alarm clock during one weekday if you want to force the weekend fight. So, for example, if let's say you want it to come out on a Saturday, that means you have to do the armor timer on like a Thursday at their time. So instead of it coming out, like Thursday at their time for the final timer, now it's the armor timer.
Also, that gives you a lot more of time to kind of it gives the defender a lot less time to like hardcore prepare and bat phone for that timer though.
Yeah, that is true. You can't bat phone as hard anymore, and you can also at least force a weekend timer for the final timer. And also, it's a lot easier to blue ball armor timers than the whole timer, right? So if you can just reinforce a bunch of timers in your shield timer, and they have to show up and treat them like that it's the final timer now. because previously people would just ignore the armor timer and then just bat phone everyone for the whole timer. Whereas now there's far less time to bat phone, and now you can't like just ignore the armor timer because otherwise it's coming out on a weekend. If the
Yeah.
attackers want it anyway.
The fact at the end of the day, like, this is a change that's probably not going to fix everything, and I don't think that's a problem.
Yeah.
Like, I really don't. I think that the fact that CCPs were able to, in like 2 weeks, turn around and do at least something to change something that's been a problem for like going on 3.5 years now, and they've addressed it in this short of like a development cycle, is a great example of what Team Talos is doing, and I hope it continues. Actually, who knows? Maybe this is 5.0 just like chipping back in on the topic, but I don't know, the cadence of this development and the fact that it got done, something about it got done, instead of us having to wait, another year and a half from the last change, is amazing to me.
Yeah, I think people need to realize that there isn't going to be a silver bullet for Citadels. I think, this isn't the silver bullet. This is, one round from a revolver. We're going to need, 5 more from the clip before Citadels are going to be in a healthy state. But it's cool that CCP iterated on it.
The jitter range going up a little bit also helps. It means people can just like spam a lot of shield timers and just try and take a really, that's kind of like your ideal stuff. If you're going for an invasion, is probably just to spam a ton of shield timers on 40s. Hopes that you get one of those armor timers to flick up into a time that's good for you, and that's the one you try and really contest. And then you're also kind of, by extension, forcing them to try and defend against blue balls all across the rest of that time zone, so they're going to be stretched out, and then maybe you can hit there and actually win the fight.
Yeah, it should be mentioned that this also fixes another problem on like the super large scale, when you were like on the scale of like, coalition engagements. Before, what a defending alliance would do is they would have all of their citadels all come out at the exact same timer on the exact same day. So you would literally have 2 hours every week as a window where you can actually kill citadels, and you can't do anything else outside of that day and time. But now, I mean, if you can reinforce something on Monday, and then you can reinforce something on Tuesday, etc., so you can progressively do things during the week instead of having to, have all of your fights take place on just one small window.
Thought about that, but it is very true. You're still going to run into the time zone wall a little bit through ADM stuff, but I don't think that's a huge problem. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with soft warfare being very much a time zone locked thing.
Yeah, I think the ADM timers generally work out pretty well. I know a lot of people like shit on the Intosis mechanic, but I think the ADM portion of Intosis is at least, pretty decent.
Yeah, I agree with that. Speaking of ADM, that you can also no longer place medium outpost structures, so Astra Houses, Athanors, and Raytaras, in any system that has an ADM of over 4. Kind of nice. It makes structure spam not as viable. My only real problem with it is that it means that sometimes you're not going to be able to put down like a content Astra House exactly where you want to, and you're not going to be able to like warp people off structures and do shenanigans like that, but I'm not sure how much value that really holds in the first place.
Yeah, I think it helps smaller groups a little bit. If you're active in your space, it's very hard. Like, a lot of small groups that I know would complain, because, someone like Goonswarm would put a Citadel in their space and there's absolutely nothing they can do about it.
That's fair enough.
Whereas at least now they have to commit a Fortizar into their space, I guess. I think it's quite nice, actually, just tying more Citadel mechanics into, like, Sov, because it's kind of felt like, Sov and Citadels are like 2 completely separate things that very seldom overlap outside of industry-related things.
Fair enough. I think that is a good point, but I feel like they've always been trying to separate those out as much as possible in their own way. You know, I think that's probably a good change. I don't feel like people were really throwing down Astra houses offensively to like harass people. People weren't running big Raytario chains through people's territory to, blops behind the enemy lines or anything like that. So it's not like we're losing a great deal.
Yeah, I know Goons and Horde used to do it to each other all the time, right? When they were like the other side was deployed, they would come in and just drop 50 Ratarus or through out their space with the hope that, even though Goons are going to be able to kill, let's say 45 out of those 50, the 5 that go online are then like just a massive pain in the ass to remove.
Yeah, and a lot of that's been solved by some of these other changes too. It's like it's generally trying to make. Well, I guess that's not even trying to make them less of an offensive tool, because you can still do it. You can still make the statement with the Fortizar, or you can even do the whole Salt Dragon thing and just throw an entire Keepstar out there as the first act of a deployment.
Yeah, I mean, and there is also like a bit more of a tactical side to it now too, right? Like if you want to drop an Astra House somewhere, you have to look at like the ADMs, and maybe you can think about like trying to lower the ADMs by leaving cloaky campers in their space and ganking ratters and forcing it to go below ADM 4.
Thing that got changed with this, or at least the other major thing that got changed in this big hit on structures, is there's a little bit of a tweak to faction warfare. Basically, no longer tether to hostile Astra houses. So Astra houses that belong to an enemy faction to you, or that are in space that belongs to an enemy faction.
Yeah, or if you're in the enemy faction, you can't tether to any structure.
How it works.
Yeah, so in a Galanti-owned system, a Kadari player can't tether on any structure.
You really have a lot more kind of experience with faction warfare. I've only ever kind of used it as a place to go and get PvP. I've not engaged heavily with the mechanics. So what can you tell us about it? Like, how does this really affect the Warzone?
I honestly don't think it's going to affect too much. It prevents tethering, which is nice, and it does allow you to camp people into their own structures because of that. In a way, right? Because they can't just tether; they have to like instantly redock in the activation timer. But people can still stage from them. You just lose tethering. You lose you lose some flexibility, and it's a bit harder to have like ships in space and things like that. But since you can still dock at the structures, I don't think it's going to have like any major impacts. It's more of just quality of life removal for people in opposite factions. It does make things like moving assets and stuff potentially a bit more dangerous. But other ways, I don't think it's going to have a massive implication on the Warzone. But it is nice that CCP is looking at it. And I listened to I think another podcast. It's like the Small Gang podcast. It's done by Fatal and Blood Ruin that had Rise on it, and he said it was more of like a thing that they could do and they just put in rather than some like super thought out thing that they put in for FW.
So the Less Than 10 podcast. And it's nice to see some love getting given to faction warfare at the end of the day. We had some promises that they would look into it from London, and I hope this isn't the extent of it, but even if it is, it's nice to just see, hey, here's a little nod, here's to make sure that you're not getting completely ignored like you have been for the past, 5 to 6 years.
Yeah, the last change to FW was the Warp Core stab change, which was I think a bit of a mixed reaction, right? Because on one hand, getting rid of stabs from the sites was good, but then it broke the gate sliding thing. And then before the major iteration to faction warfare, I don't think there has been one since like Inferno, which was in 2013.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, there probably have been little tweaks. There were some tweaks to the missions when those were getting really out of control in terms of payout, and there were things like banning the venture from it and all those sorts of things. And also the release of the E-War faction frigates, for example, the Maulus and the Crucified Navy issue.
Yeah, there's been touch of love here and there, but yeah, it would be nice if they can do some like real solid changes to the core of FW.
That's what people mostly mean when they say it's been ignored, is that the core problems haven't been addressed. It's just been, it feels almost like window dressing sometimes, although work does go into it, and I want to acknowledge that. Nice. It's Christmas, Suitonia. I'm giving everyone the spirit of giving.
Yeah, and speaking of Christmas, I believe at Eve London, Hilmar said something regarding there's going to be some small resource change before the end of the year. Don't think we've seen that just yet, so hopefully that's going to be coming within the next 2 weeks. But then again, it's like going to be in the middle of Christmas, so I'm not sure if it will.
Every EVE Online player wants during Christmas.
Hey guys, fuck you! All of your resources have changed.
I would, I would be so mad if I actually had an empire.
On the Tuesday, the 24th of December.
There have been a couple of other little changes here, though, like the new player overview getting tweaked to be slightly less crap. That's good. I've been yelling about that for years.
Yeah. They also did something that I think we suggested. I believe it's been mentioned before on the CSM2, and that was preventing bounties from being added to characters that are less than 30 days old.
Yeah, and I think people from the outside might think that's a bit like weird and arbitrary, but like, goddamn, you guys do not have access to some of the statistics that CCP shows us, where they're like, hey, yeah, look, turns out that putting bounties on a new character's head, when they like open up and look at their portrait and they see the wanted on their head, they just automatically assume, well, people are going to hunt me down and kill me, and 1 million ISK is way more than I've, got in my wallet. Might as well just quit the game. And it happened enough that it looked like it was a severe problem, and then CCP were just like, yeah, we're not really going to do anything about that. And now they have done something about it, and that's nice.
Yeah, new players don't necessarily understand the mechanics. Like, they think that, because you've got a bounty on you, you can actually be engaged in high sec, when in reality it doesn't actually change the engagement rules at all.
What's in this patch that really caught your eye, Suitonia?
I mean, I'm just super excited about the filaments.
I really want to do a stream. Like I said, I just want to carve like a Black Crusade of mayhem through EVE Online with these filaments.
I think the jitter station model thing got updated, didn't it?
Oh yeah, that was also in this patch, but it's always cool. It's always nice to see like unique stuff like that, but me and you have both seen the final model, and we're just waiting for that.
Yeah.
The problems with being a CSM sometimes is that the surprise of things are kind of ruined for you.
Yeah, I want to shout out the funniest bug fix in this patch, which was if you had corporation roles, you wouldn't be able to open up your wallet, and they have now fixed that.
What? Funny. Well, before we wrap up here, why don't you talk a little bit about why this is going up on the eveiseasy channel as well as your Suitonia channel?
Yeah, so I started up a new channel just so I can feel good about uploading more stuff without it, like, necessarily being like eveiseasy. And I'm trying to grow that channel a bit. So, if you've missed my videos a little bit, because I haven't uploaded much anyway, but I have a few videos up there that you might not have seen, including 2 other episodes of this podcast / talk thing. So check it out, and also check out Jin'taan's content too. He's also pretty cool. I'm sure you can suck your own dick better than I can.
If you want to follow what I do, I put content out on Twitter. I have a stream on Twitch, which is /FrigateMenace. Although I don't really play that much EVE Online on there. I mostly play EVE Echoes and a bit of Magic the Gathering right now. More fun to stream, but given these new filaments, who knows? We might see a couple of Jin'taan streams here and there. And of course, I also have my YouTube channel where I mostly talk about news. I also have read out the patch notes in their entirety, and I do that the day of release most patches. So if you want to have an up-to-the-date source of just someone to make sure you don't have to read everything, but still know what you're doing if you're like on a commute or whatever, hopefully I can provide that.
Yeah, and unlike me, Jin'taan actually regularly uploads videos and has 3 videos or so a week usually.
I hit about 2 videos a week, but then again, I have more free time than you do, Suitonia.
Yep, that's true. So anyway, check out the my main channel. Well, I guess it's not my main channel; it's my personal channel. Check out Jin'taan's channel and subscribe, etc. The problem with sucking your own dick is it feels more like a mouth a dick in your mouth and a mouth on your dick. You know what I mean?
With that, I think it is wonderful. That's a wonderful note to just leave us all on. So, with a dick in my mouth and a dick in Suitonia's mouth, remember everyone, fly smart, and we'll see you in the next fortnight.